I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. Now, as promised, I said that if I got to do a RIPperoni interview, I would wear this lovely pizza onesie, which is very fashionable. But I am so excited to have Anna here from RIPperoni so that we can talk about this awesome rookie robot.
Thank you for having me. The pizza onesie is wonderful. The team would like them for our walkouts, please. Let us know where you got them.
Yes, they're very easy to find on Amazon. So anyone who is a fan of RIPperoni, please buy one, support the team. You've had one match. I think there's been a lot of buzz about this robot in particular for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just a fun theme, and I don't know why no one has ever thought of this up until this point. But also, because RIPperoni in concept is not new. You come from Norwalk, you've had this smaller version of RIPperoni at Norwalk. So, some people may be familiar with that robot, but, it's a 250-pound version. Obviously, this is new to BattleBots.
Yeah, well, the 30-pounder was actually built as a test platform for if we wanted to take it into the 250-pound weight class. So when Omega Team first formed, we all developed a couple different robots. And after we attended Motorama and a couple Norwalk events, we looked at the robots that we had on the team and we decided which ones we thought would scale really well to the 250 class. So RIPperoni was one of the ones that we picked. We saw how excited fans got about the pizza theme, so we knew we had a hit on our hands there. And we were really excited about the flywheel technology and getting the custom weapon motor built and the weird asymmetrical chassis, bringing that into BattleBots. So that's kind of what made us pick RIPperoni and take it to the 250 class.
Now, I'm just curious from when this idea originated. Now, I can think of reasons why pizza, but why pizza?
So the name came first. So actually, all of RIPperoni is based on this 3-pound robot that one of our teammates, Austin Brown, built for a competition 4 or 5 years ago. He built something that doesn't quite look like what RIPperoni looks like now, but is very similar. It has the big hoop type weapon in the front. It's asymmetrical. It's made out of plastic. And he built it for one event, and it was really funny. It would like bounce all around the box. Its self-righting was the same as it is for big RIPperoni. It just slaps its weapon and it hopes it lands on its feet. And he built it, and it was fun. And then it was kind of on the shelf for a while. And after our season with Uppercut, there was one time that Uppercut ran that hoop weapon against, I believe, a fight with Dragon Slayer. And Uppercut was very difficult to drive. And after that, Uppercut shelved that weapon. They said they were never using it again. But we were thinking like, okay, what would a robot with that weapon look like? Like if we're going to have that kind of hoop crazy weapon that has a huge moment of inertia, that is really, really heavy, how do we design the rest of the robot to accommodate that? And then we came back to this RIPperoni concept, and we decided to build a 30-pounder, see how that worked. And then when that worked well, we scaled it up even further. But the name came first, and that was just like a fun exclamation that you say when something goes wrong, like, RIPperoni, my drill bit broke, And then I thought like, well, the only theme that's fitting of this is a pepperoni pizza. And then we told Tony D'Ambrosio, our graphics and costumes guy, hey, I think the theme should be pizza. And immediately my inbox was full of all of the vinyls that he designed for us, like t-shirts, logos, everything. So once we saw what he came up with, we were like full send, like this is what we're doing.
Yeah, Tony's awesome. He has also been on the show. I couldn't think of a better idea than that. And, not only that, but you've really like everything that you do with the team is so like cohesive with that theme, as we saw in the first episode. I had not previously before seen the whole pizza box situation with putting the opponent's name and the ingredients being pepperoni and pain. And I just like lost it when I saw that, because it's so perfect. Like, it's not even something that you had to do, but you added that in there, and it just kind of makes it even better.
Yeah, so look out for those, because we change them every match.
Does it always include pain, or does it include other things?
It always includes pain, but the other toppings do change.
Got it. Okay. I will have to look out for that. Yeah. And you mentioned uppercut, because for people that maybe don't know you, but you had previously been on the uppercut team, and certainly RIPperoni is very similar to uppercut in a lot of ways, but kind of with that added flywheel to help with the issues that uppercut typically has. I mean, did you learn a lot from being on that team that's kind of helped you with putting that into this robot?
Absolutely. I mean, uppercut's fantastic. We all loved working on the robot. I think there's 4 of us who came from uppercut to do this RIPperoni project, and we wanted to solve a lot of the problems. Like, one of the thing, uppercut was a high voltage robot, and this year they made that illegal. So that was one thing that we knew we weren't going to be able to do. And in order to move to a low voltage system, there was a lot of redesigning that had to happen anyway. So wanting to use that different style of weapon that uppercut didn't really use. RIPperoni ended up being really, really different. Like, we made a lot of really different design choices. The body of RIPperoni is made out of plastic. That's also, I think, pretty new in the heavyweight class. The asymmetrical chassis with one side being tilted. That's been interesting to try. It has its own little quirks now that we're finding out. Like, people saw in the gruff fight that we like to tip over onto that lifted side, and we're still learning how to drive the robot in order to make that an advantage and not a disadvantage.
Did anything in that gruff fight really surprise you? Because I mean, I know, like, I've talked to plenty of builders, and I know it's hard to really, I mean, you had the 30-pound version, obviously, but every robot's different, and it's hard to test those bigger robots in a true like match competitive environment. So what surprised you about that match, and what did the robot do that you expected it to do?
Well, first off, the break dancing was a surprise. I know that Fred saw that it was possible, and then he like leaned into it and then really did a full spin, but that was not a choreographed move. That was just spur of the moment, like, oh, hey, look, I think it does this. Let's see what happens. But like, self-righting is something that we really were not able to test before coming to BattleBots. Like, it's just really dangerous to let a robot loose. Like, even in a big parking lot, you just don't know where it's going to bounce or what it's going to hit. So we had practiced just plain driving and hitting things with the weapon at half speed, but we never were able to do a full power test. So really just seeing the dynamics of that and figuring out how much juice to put into the flywheel versus the weapon, and coordinating that. Like, Fred drives the robot, but I run the weapon and the flywheel. So, and we have a third person who kind of coordinates our attacks and makes sure that we're both on the same page. And I'm spooling up when Fred's going in, and I'm spooling down when he's evading, things like that. So that was all our first time trying it, and we learned a lot.
Yeah, I think you always do learn a lot from that first match, for sure. And there's, it's a long season this year, because every robot gets 4 fights, and that is not common. Is that part of the strategy with that first match, to make sure that you don't, expend too much, so that you have enough left over for those 3 additional fights plus anything potentially after that?
We were more interested in like gathering data. Like, we wanted to go the full 3 minutes if we could. We really wanted to see like what the limits were, and were we hitting our limits? How many times can it self-right? Like, was it gonna just explode halfway through that? Like, really fighting is the best like test for your robot. So we knew that once we were in there, we were going to do the craziest stuff possible just to see where the weak spots were. And we located a lot, like right in that first fight, that wedge attachment, right out.
Yeah, you know, that's a good strategy, and it's something that you have to do, and you know, hopefully that's something that we can see you build off of for the rest of the season. One other thing that I wanted to ask, just like about coming into BattleBots, is because obviously you have the, you know, the Norwalk experience. What are the biggest like differences that you saw, other than the obvious, you know, going into BattleBots with a 250-pound robot versus fighting at Norwalk with a 30-pound?
Going back to working on the 30-pounder, it looked so simple. Oh my goodness. It takes, I don't really know exactly how long it takes to put the 250-pounder together, because a lot of the time we have two people working on it at once. But the 30-pounder I ripped apart in 20 minutes, and I was like, wow. I forgot that this one's actually really simple compared to the big one. It takes a lot of tools, a lot of impact drivers, a lot of wrenching on stuff to take the big one apart. It really makes the 30-pounder look simple.
I would imagine.
We designed RIPperoni to try to be as simple as possible. Like really the whole chassis is meant for everything to drop in from the top. There's really no components that have to come in from the sides or from the bottom. Like you just take off the top plates and everything is right there. It's all accessible. So that's, you know, we tried to make it as easy as possible to work on, and still it would be a bit of a project.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, obviously, everybody can see, you know, who all your fights are for the rest of the season. But when you got accepted to BattleBots, was there any team or any robot off the top of your head that you wanted to fight, you know, that you had hoped that you would get to fight?
I don't think we really thought that far ahead. I think we were just so excited to be in, and we had so much work to do. We only got the call that we were accepted in like late July, and filming was in October. So it was realistically a 2-month project. So we didn't really have time to think about stuff like that. We were just looking at the field and thinking, okay, what are we going to do for horizontals? What are we going to do for verts? What are we going to do in all these different situations? Do we have the right attachments? Do we have the right configurations? I don't think that we really thought about like any one robot in particular. I guess we kept the really big hoop size, the 24-inch diameter weapon, which Uppercut had. We kept that diameter because that's how tall Huge's body is. So that was, I guess, the only time that we really thought about that.
Well, and Huge is a unique robot. So I think it's one of those that everyone has to have some kind of game plan for, because it's not common. Yeah, that's great. I mean, when you got to Vegas, did you feel like you were pretty prepared then, because you were so focused on, you know, making sure that you got everything ready after you had heard that you were accepted?
Not really. We showed up, we were still pretty frazzled. Like I said before, we had never really done a full power test. We had never run all the systems on the robot at once, mostly due to like safety concerns, but also because not all the systems were ready. The flywheels met us in Vegas. We actually had a flywheel that we designed that didn't work, that deformed. We spun it so fast that the steel just whoop. Yeah, so we had to redesign it to be stronger out of a stronger alloy of steel, and those flywheels literally met us at the event. We installed them in those first few days before filming started.
Oh my. Was it ever a concern, you know, because like we saw that unfortunately, you know, there were either teams that didn't pass safety at the beginning of the season or came very close to not passing safety. Were you ever concerned that that was going to happen?
We weren't really concerned about passing safety, but we were concerned that just fundamentally the robot wouldn't work. Like the physics just wouldn't happen the way that we expected it to. Like with that flywheel, which the gruff fight isn't that great of an example, because we did turn off the flywheel consciously halfway through. We realized it wasn't really going to help us, so we didn't need to use the battery on it. but like that's all of RIPperoni hinges on having a flywheel function. If the flywheel doesn't work, then the robot is undrivable. There's just too much gyroscopic precession. So we really put all our eggs in one basket there, just hoping that that would work when we got to competition. We did try to implement the flywheel concept on the 30-pounder, like originally when the 30-pounder was built, but just couldn't scale the flywheel that small. We just fried all of the speed controllers on the motors that had enough torque to actually spin it up, and the project has been shelved. So we decided that what we really need to do, the flywheel concept, is more weight and a bigger robot. So we just committed the 250-pounder. The whole system is about 25 pounds. So that's 25 pounds that we don't have for things like armor and attachments and a designated self-rider.
Yeah, and that's interesting though that you mentioned about the flywheel, because I regularly hear about things that are on the smaller robots that won't logistically work in a scaled up version, but I don't think that I've ever heard about it the opposite way. That something will work on the bigger robot that won't work on the smaller. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we didn't know if it was going to do anything until we put it in that first fight. So that was nerve-wracking for sure.
Was it, I mean, obviously, like, they have, cameras and things like that at Norwalk, but at BattleBots, it's very different. It's more of a full production, and they have, like the team videos and recording promos and things like that. How was that aspect for you? Because that, I mean, to me, that would be something that I wouldn't be used to.
That was a lot of fun. That was when we really leaned into the pizza theme. Everybody, like with this theme, it's so like pizza's so popular. Everybody knows what pizza is. Everybody has a favorite pizza. They have an idea of what they like. So everyone on our team had, I want to hold a pineapple. I want to do this. One of our teammates, Aaron, he made the pizza paddle that the robot comes out on. Like that was completely his idea. He just showed up with it and was like, guys, I made this. Like, same with the pepper mill that he made. Like just the theme really lended itself well to people getting excited about different things. And Fred wanted to wear the chef costume and then the fake mustaches. And then we all got excited about that. So it was really fun to see everybody's personality come through with this theme. And I think doing the team shots and things like that was a ton of fun.
It seems like it would be. And I can tell you, I mean, just from having been there, I think the fans really, really have embraced this. I mean, there were definitely pizza chants going on at the BattleBots arena, because like how could you not? It's just so fun. And I think that there's, not a lot of limitations creatively on what you could potentially do with this.
Yeah, that was wild. We were so excited when people started chanting pizza. I wasn't expecting that at all. It was crazy. I'm so glad that people liked our theme.
Well, like you said, everybody likes pizza, and I think that because of the fact that, this isn't a completely new robot, that there are fans that, watch both BattleBots and also follow Norwalk. So, some people may already have some familiarity with you and with this robot. And Norwalk is certainly famous for food themed robots. Which people really seem to love. So I think that it's a great direction to go. Is this, now that you've done BattleBots for one season, obviously not talking about anything that happens later in the season yet, we'll all find out soon enough. But, is this, obviously the plan now that you're like, okay, this is awesome. It was well received. We want to make sure that we try and go back to BattleBots for the next season.
Yeah, I think so. I think, we're sticking with the pizza. I think we really hit the nail on the head with it. I think there's so many more ideas that we have on attachments and gags and costumes that we didn't get to do this first time around. And we have a whole nother year to plan it out. So no, we're in it for the pizza. We're in it for good.
I'm sure lots of fans will be excited to hear that. And, are you going to, I mean, I'm sure that you will, but you'll continue running the 30-pound version as well?
Yeah, so I actually renamed the 30-pound version Lil Rip, because I don't want there to be any more confusion. When I say RIPperoni, I'm talking about the big one, and then Lil Rip is the small side project. But yeah, I'm going to continue running that one. It's pretty much just my project now, so I'm driving it, I'm building it, and yeah, I'm going to keep it running. It's a good time. I'm not particularly an experienced driver, so it's good for me to get stick time on it, and then use what I learned for the big BattleBots.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I mean, like, some builders also do the driving and some, do one or the other. But I think that it seems like it's a good idea to be well-rounded because you never know what's going to happen, especially at BattleBots. There's been plenty of instances where somebody just couldn't be available for something, especially since, like, COVID is manageable, but it's still there and it's still a thing that, comes into play at filming. So I think that that's great to get that additional experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a ton of fun. Like, I like it.
Yes.
The 30-pounder is a lot cheaper to fix when I inevitably explode it. So
it is definitely a lot cheaper to fix, and just as spectacular to see those fights as well. So I'm sure that we'll be looking forward to both. And I'm trying to think, is there anything? Well, obviously, like, we can't talk about any results, but is there anything else from filming this past season that was particularly memorable for you that you can talk about that's like not directly a match result?
I'm not sure because I'm not sure what kind of segments they're going to air, but we did film some bonus segments. I hope that those make it into the show or get posted on YouTube at least. But we did some silly stuff. It was great.
I mean, I'm sure, I have no doubt, and I hope that those things do air at some point. Oh yeah, and like the other thing that I was going to say too is just like I haven't been to Norwalk yet. I plan to, but I haven't been. But I've obviously seen it on TV and seen like shots of the pits, which is crazy in its own way because there's so many more robots. They're smaller, but there's a lot more of them. But at BattleBots, like, being in the pits and being back there with like all of these teams that have been doing this for years and years and have won giant nuts, and it's got to be to some extent a different experience than what it is being at Norwalk.
The thing is, I think it's actually very similar. And I'm a big veteran of all sorts of competitive engineering. Like, I did first in high school and I did the collegiate Formula League. So Formula FSAE, I did the electric division. So our college had like a race car. But it's always the same idea of you have these areas where teams set up and have all of their tools. And I actually think that it's very similar across all of them. Sometimes the vibes are different and there's some teams that are more competitive and some teams that are more there to hang out, but you really do find that across all of the different competitions. I think that it's always like a good community. Everybody's there because they built something cool. Everybody's frazzled because deadlines are always shorter than you think they're going to be. And that's why I keep coming back to these kinds of things. And that's why I got involved in BattleBots in the first place, because I really miss that kind of environment.
And I'm glad that you brought up first, because I have talked about it a few times on my show, because there's a number of people that are involved, whether it be directly or just like sponsoring teams or things like that. But from what I've heard about the first program, which thankfully it's something that's kind of starting to come into my area here, which I think is great for like all of the kids that have this interest, and it's a way for them to learn. How important do you think that is for somebody that really wants to get into robotics and get into engineering, to have that experience at a young age?
Oh, I think it's crucial. I don't think FIRST is the only place that you can get it. Like, I think FIRST is great, but FIRST does require, it's pretty expensive. Like, schools really have to support the students. And if you go to a school that isn't supporting FIRST or doesn't have the money to compete there, then, you know, that's not really an option. So I don't think that FIRST is the only choice in any case. Like, I think that there's tons of other smaller robotics competitions and smaller programs that are a little bit more accessible. And I think getting involved in whatever you can get your hands on is the number one most important thing for like being successful in engineering. The earlier you start, the more skills you get early and the farther you'll go. So even if it's just building drones in your own backyard out of foam and a motor that you got on eBay, like it really doesn't matter. Building any kind of project is good experience.
Yes. Whatever way that you do it at any age, you know, because I do think that it's important to get that experience early, because I mean, you know, I've talked about trying to build a robot now, but like I have zero background in doing that. But I definitely know plenty of people who also had no background as adults and still were able to do it. So I think, you know, if it's something that you want to do when you know, put your mind to it, then you can make it happen.
Yeah, and there's lots of kits that are available, like especially for the smaller leagues of BattleBots for like 1 pound and 3 pound robots. You can buy a kit or you can follow a YouTube tutorial. And that is like the best way to start for any kind of project, whatever it is, if it's drones, RC cars, BattleBots, robots that follow a line and put out little fires. I forget which competition did that, maybe Vex. But there's so many different options out there. And yeah, the best way to start is just to build something that follows a tutorial. And then once you've done that once, then you've learned some skills, and then you can build on it and say, okay, now I'm going to do that. But for the second half, I'm going to replace it with my own thing. And then before you know it, you're coming up with your own brand new designs and winning competitions, right? Like that's the trajectory.
Exactly. And like you said, there really are so many out there. You know, there was a time where I thought there's nothing in my area where I'm here in the Midwest, but then I've had so many people tell me, oh no, there's like all of these things. And it's, you know, if you search out there and you ask people in the community, you'll probably find something in your area that you can get involved with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Because we need more food themed robots and animal themed robots. We need more.
I'm not gonna lie, pizza was my third choice. I'm really upset that both frogs and owls were already taken. Yeah, I would have loved to build a frog robot, but darn it, Robot beat me.
Dang it, David, why'd you do that? Yeah, it's cool stuff. I love the creativity, you know, because the probably one of the number one things that I say, and I was literally just talking to the new/old BattleBots judge Fawn Davis about this, that if you can find a robot that is both creative and can also kill the other robot's face, that's what you should be going for. Get a good mix of both, and that's going to be a winning combination.
Yeah, I mean, we really tried to do a lot of new stuff with RIPperoni. Like, we all know the meta, we all know the kinds of robots that are successful, but we weren't particularly interested in doing that. We wanted to do something brand new, something really crazy, and just like throw a bunch of stuff out there and say, I don't know, is this good? And that's what we did. We have the weird flywheel, we have the asymmetrical chassis, we have our custom weapon motor built by Austin. It's fantastic. You know, yeah, really throwing it out there. And the chassis is so weird. It's made out of mostly plastic with a steel frame around it. We use plastic as armor. We use a component called Tegris as armor as well, which is like a polypropylene weave. So it looks like carbon fiber, but it's actually just plastic fibers. And we're finding that these kinds of materials are really great in combat robotics because they're bouncy. So instead of absorbing the hit and deforming the way that steel or aluminum would, they kind of flex out of the way, or just a piece of it kind of comes off and it's machined away and it's gone, and the energy doesn't actually transfer into the rest of the robot. So we're really experimenting on a lot of fronts.
That is very cool. I'm excited about it. I'm sure that a lot of fans are too. And everybody just needs to keep watching this amazing season of BattleBots to see what else RIPperoni does. Yeah, basically, if you're watching the show, make sure that you continue to follow, like, subscribe, support combat robotics, because it is so important. That is what this is all about. So lots more to come in this season for RIPperoni and everyone else, and we'll see you next time on the show. And thank you so much, Anna, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is so much fun.